Hello, everyone. Warm welcome and good afternoon. I'm Subrajit Dutt, Senior Manager with Deloitte's practice. We'll share a short story. Back in 2020, in the middle of pandemic, we were in discussion with Hitachi, and that's when I got the opportunity to hop onto this journey of Hitachi's treasury transformation, and I moved all the way across from the US to Singapore. Today, we are going to share that journey with you guys, and along with me, I have Kathy Fields, who also moved back and forth between the US and Singapore for the same project. Let's get this started. Kathy?
Welcome, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. I did meet Subrajit in Singapore. I actually moved to Singapore in 2019 to help lead this project. I was selected by Hitachi Treasury to kind of bring a more global view and to kind of represent the performance for this particular project. You're going to see that the scope is very different than the project that you just experienced with Judith. So we have a lot to cover. We're going to do a really high, can you hear me okay? Sorry. We're going to do a really high-level overview of how this project kind of came to be and what we're kind of in the midst of right now. But let me give you just a background a little bit on Hitachi itself. So, it's not working. Is it not going?
No, yeah, let's
go. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So over 110 years ago, in a very small machine shop that really focused on supporting and developing mining equipment, a gentleman by the name of Namihei or Dara, and you'd think I'd be better at Japanese names by now, but I'm not. He was an electrical engineer by trade, and he was also very concerned about Japan's dependency on imports. So he kind of took it upon himself. He actually ended up developing the first 5-horsepower induction motor for Japan. And from there, Hitachi kind of grew. Hitachi Limited was born. The mission and value and visions that Odara developed for Hitachi are still in place today for the company. Throughout the whole family of Hitachi companies, our focus is really on contributing to society. And it's through developing that superior and original technology and products through collaboration and honesty and innovation to really address the challenges that we see in society today. And for us at Hitachi, what that means is we're supporting that double bottom line, which means bringing value to society as well as success for, for Hitachi. Want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've seen a lot of emphasis today and heard a lot about ESG being embedded in our corporate culture these days, and it fits really well into Hitachi Limited's infrastructure. We're really one of the true remaining conglomerates in the world today. We have, the various industries that we are in. We're really focused on, again, really improving the social infrastructure, finding sustainable services, and through digital technology, really finding ways for safe and secure, securing our personal care. From a corporate treasury perspective, though, this really represents a huge challenge when it comes to trying to find a centralized and standardized process for treasury management and cash management. So enter the opportunity for treasury transformation.
Yeah. Setting the objectives is key. That sets the stone of the project. And considering the breadth and the size of Hitachi and highly decentralized treasury operations, it becomes imperative that the obvious objective was to centralize its treasury operations. We'll use the word centralize, standardize more often. And like all digital transformation, technology is used as the critical catalyst to simplify and standardize the processes across the board. Build on to that, we have the key functional treasury objectives like centralized cash, centralize your cash visibility, more efficient usage of cash, reduce external borrowing costs. You standardize and automate the process of data collections to improve your forecast, to get better exposures, and do FX risk management. Streamline your payments, with payment governance, with reduced fraud risk, and have an efficient payment tracking system. In the technical objectives, you try to optimize and rationalize your systems, reduce inefficiencies, bring in automation wherever we can, and try to improve the performance. And all this, along with that, we have to keep in mind to preserve and protect. It has to be a resilient and compliant system which safeguards you from risk, and it has to be within Hitachi's security framework. Now, keeping these objectives in mind, and what just Kathy mentioned, if you look, this is the architecture of Hitachi's Treasury system landscape when we started the project. And then you will see the need for transformation and the objectives. We'll highlight 4 key points here. It's highly decentralized, fragmented, and scattered. 4 key points. 1, the regional treasury systems are based in different TMS. Some treasury centers don't even have a TMS. There are standalone systems to do pooling, to netting functions. Then you have limited bank and vendor integrations, which heavy reliance on your e-banking platform. You have limited integration with your internal systems, so there is a scope to improve your data integrity. And as well, in addition to that, there is a manual data collection process, which is non-standardized approach followed by different group companies and the business units.
I liken this to Hitachi's, I'm going to go back to my US automotive roots here. It's like Hitachi decided to go from using an Edsel to a Tesla overnight. Not an easy task, okay? So why did we choose SAP for this journey? I'm just going to cover the 4 main reasons for today. But one of the reasons, the majority of the Hitachi companies were already using SAP for their ERP environment. So we felt that it would be an easy transition. We would be able to integrate relatively smoothly with most of the functionality. Second reason is that we would be able to maintain all of the master data in a single instance. We also would have the ability to kind of effectively and efficiently, utilizing Hitachi's own integrated SAP platforms, we would have the data linkages that we would need, again, to be able to build out the solutions that we needed. Thirdly, the majority of the users that were going to be using the system were already familiar with SAP. So again, very ease of transition, there's an easy transition. Even in the complicated processes that we were developing, we felt that it would still be a good fit. And then finally, we're putting an on-prem solution in place. So everything that we would be putting in place would be behind Hitachi's security system already. So we didn't have to worry about bringing in an additional protection solution on top of it. So what was the scope of this project? Well, if you look at this, you can see it's probably every treasury function that you could think of, which again, is a bit optimistic, I will tell you. But if you start with the building blocks, start from the beginning. You start with your bank account management. You start with your cash visualization. You build onto that with your cash forecasting. The gears start turning so that you can now move into things like your debt and investment management, group financing. You can start integrating market data. So eventually, you'll have enough activity in here, you'll start moving into the more complex functionality, like building your in-house cash so that you can start supporting cash pooling, centralized FX, intercompany netting, and then POBO, which we are absolutely going to be able to implement someday, I promise you. So.
Okay, we'll focus on the deployment timeline. In middle of pandemic again, the core group of Hitachi and Deloitte teams started working on designing a global template, which we intend to roll out across the different process areas. Of course, as with all projects, we had little room to be agile as we move ahead to adapt to the different requirement changes. So we started the project, and we went with the global template design, and the first value realization we had was the wave 1. Getting the first gear moving was key, and that helped to set the foundation of the project. We had the bank account management, cash visualization. We were able to integrate 6 major banking partners and centralize them in the Treasury system. We improved on it with additional rollout. We brought in 4 more major banking partners into the box, which gave Hitachi the visualization of the cash across the regions. With Wave 2, we took a major leap in terms of the scopes that we implemented in the system. If you see, with Wave 2, it enabled the regional treasury centers users to use the system for daily cash positioning and squaring, manage their external investments and debt. We brought in all the financial instruments there. We brought in cash pooling as is structure with help of in-house banking, and we automated the balance reporting, accounting, interest calculation, withholding tax calculation functionalities. We brought in a streamlined process for group financing, which we leverage the standard SAP workflows, whereby the group companies can request for investment and borrowing with the regional treasury centers. We brought in the interest rate instruments. We brought in cash flow hedge and fair value hedge accounting to manage those instruments in the system. We did bring in the FX deal management system as is. We established an inbound interface from Bloomberg FX Go into the TMS. And in addition to that, we brought in the interfaces. We integrated with the market data, external source provider, internal source providers. As well, we automated the journal entry transmission from the TMS to multiple SAP ERP systems. That's the GL interface we're talking about. Now, we are here as we stand. In next 1 month, we intend to go live with a centralized FX risk management solution that is based on, we are gathering exposures using our cash flow forecasting tool, and using that, we centralize all the cash flow exposures, we net them, we do the automated internal FX deal between the regional treasury centers and group company. Then regional treasury centers uses SAP's hedge management cockpit to do the external trading. We have simultaneously another track of project exposures, which enables the regional treasury centers to do back-to-back trading on behalf of the group companies. All this is complemented with the Bloomberg integration end-to-end, with the inbound as well as the outbound. Well, the engine is running in full speed. As you know, we are going live in the next 1 month with FX, but we are not there yet. We have a lot more journey to cover, and this is the roadmap that we have. We have the intercompany cashless netting to replace the native global netting tool that Hitachi is using. We have planned for an upgrade to S/4HANA 2021. We are in the 1909 system, by the way. And then, down the road, we have plans to implement payment on behalf of functionality with chosen group of pilot entities across the world using APM and in-house cash solution of SAP.
So remembering, again, that first picture you saw, how really disparate and scattered the system landscape was, kind of is, but was. Bringing S/4HANA in as that centralization and standardization tool really does kind of eliminate some of that noise and the confusion. And it allows us to really have a truly centralized treasury and cash management solution. Now, overlaying this, though, you absolutely need to make sure that you have the right policies, the right processes, that you're, again, I heard some discussion in some of the sessions this morning, collaborating with your business partners. You need to make sure that you're putting the right processes in place to support this. You're setting the rules, you're defining how a group company that doesn't use SAP, how are they going to communicate and integrate into SAP? You're defining the counterparts that the group companies are allowed to use to support their own treasury activities. So again, it truly will be, though, that centralized solution that Hitachi needs. It'll give them the visibility they need, the reporting capabilities, and it really will help define how Hitachi can manage all of these group companies from a treasury perspective going forward. Now, not only is there system standardization and centralization, but the treasury organization itself is going to be very centralized. You have the group companies that create the base of the structure. They will be using S/4HANA as the conduit to execute all the Treasury functions that have been defined by the project. Their first interface is going to be with all of the regional Treasury centers that support them in all the different geographies where the companies are located. And it's the regional Treasury centers, as SD mentioned, they're going to take that data and they're going to take that activity and they're going to push it up to the global Treasury center. This is the piece of the structure that we never had before. And this is what's really going to create that standardized and centralized Treasury operational activity for us. That entity becomes the risk entity from a Treasury perspective. This is the entity that will do all of the external activity on behalf of and in support of all the group companies globally. So, where's the value in all this?
Yes.
Why are we doing this?
We have to achieve value at each step, at each milestones, right? So we started the project with the phase 1, which we established the foundation of bank account management. That gave Hitachi the opportunity to look at the breadth of the bank accounts that they have across different banking partners and room to rationalize that, right? So it got them thinking. Then, along with the cash visualization, it helped them to provide the daily visualization of the cash. And with a streamlined cash forecasting submission tool that we developed for Hitachi, it helped them to collect all the forecast data in a standardized format.
Now, for the second component here, when you talk about what in-house cash does for you, I mean, you're having all of your participants pooling their cash in a centralized location. This makes it much easier for Hitachi to utilize and deploy that cash more effectively. I mean, in this environment where interest rates are going who knows where, you want the ability to kind of manage your debt position much more effectively, and this will allow us to do that. It's also, centralizing the FX. I mean, you now have a single entity that's doing the external hedging on a net basis instead of hundreds of group companies doing their own hedging. Tremendous savings from a hedging perspective. Cost.
And not only from the functional point of view, we have to look at the system landscape point of view also, right? So we have the opportunity to retire some of the native TMS. As we mentioned, some of the RTCs were using multiple different TMS systems. And also the pooling solution, that was a native solution. We intend to retire some more systems as we go down the road with our cashless netting solution. Then improve efficiency in the entire system landscape, bring in automation wherever we can. And with this, we reduce all the inefficiencies and reduce the manual work hours for that. Another important aspect is to roll out controlled access for the group company users who uses the same TMS platform, but with limited access for their purpose. That encourages them to log into the TMS and use that for their own purpose.
So even though we're kind of only halfway through this journey, there are several lessons that we've learned along the way that we'd like to share with you today. Me personally, I actually became kind of the change management agent for this particular project by default. But I strongly recommend that you have a strategy for change management at the very beginning. You have to. It's so critical because you need that acceptance from all of the different group companies that are going to be participating in this. You need to spend time talking to them. You need to spend time getting information from them that you need to understand what your infrastructure really looks like. What are they doing today? And you need to share updates with them on a regular basis. Now, if your company is anything like Hitachi, change is the only thing you can count on, whether it's M&A or divestiture or just restructuring in general. You need to make sure that whatever you're putting in place is going to be flexible enough and will accommodate those changes that are going to be coming your way. So, from there.
Yeah, so we will share some of the other learnings with you.
Oops, sorry, I need to go back. There we go.
In terms of the project management perspective, one key learning is security role development and testing. We need to start early with security role design, development, and testing. Early identification of all the SOD conflict is very critical. And we have to thoroughly test all the functional and the transaction and the analytical apps in the Fury. And because, more specifically for Hitachi, because we have group company users doing the same functionality in certain areas as the regional treasury center users, but with limited access. Next point, test, test, test. We cannot emphasize more on testing. Testing is critical to the success of the project. Identify your change agents early, involve them in the testing cycle. Do test all the possible scenarios which are robust and more simulates to your production environment. Try to do negative testing. Also, test the exceptions. We also performed a parallel run. What advantage it gave is it made the users comfortable with the system. It gains the trust among the user communities and smoothens out your change management process as you approach the go-live date. It takes the fear out of you. Data migration, another critical aspect of the project. We have to start very early with this. We have to educate the users with constant sessions about how the master data is set up in the system, how the transaction data is set up in the system. It may be very different from the TMS they have been using. So we have to educate them. These sessions will help them to familiarize with the data collection templates that you will provide. And once they are familiarized with the data collection template, they can provide you the correct set of data. Use the template, run a couple of mock migration sessions. That will smoothen out all the errors. There will be some iterations, but will smoothen out the errors. That will facilitate an error-free and smooth migration during the go-live. Last but not the least, managing expectations is key to the success of the project. And that starts from the start till the end. You onboard all the users with the knowledge of your project, your goals, your timelines, the resource allocations, the milestone, the task ahead. Keep in constant communication channel open with them. Because with constant communication, what we can realize is that we can turn the contrasts into harmony. Kathy?
Managing those expectations, it feeds into your vendors that are supporting you as well. I mean, there's so many people that have resources committed to this project. It is so important that everyone understands what is expected and if there are changes in the timeline. Absolutely, communication is the key. That's kind of it. I know we went through a lot.
A snippet of a journey.
A lot. This
ahead.
is a huge project. I can't even express to you the scope that this particular project is including. So we touched on just a few things, but if you have any questions, we're happy to.
Sure.
There are a lot of questions for this
Okay.
session. So let's see which are the most voted ones, but if we cannot go through all of them, I invite you then to reply to the questions that we had no time to go through. So the highly requested one was, you mentioned about the cash forecasting tool, and they wanted to know if this is based on a standard function, like our cash flow analyzer, or is an own development.
That's a good question. We try to align with standardized SAP process as much as possible. Now, Hitachi, if you've seen the diagram, it is centralizing the operations, but the actual business operations are residing in multiple ERPs. Now, we needed a standardized format of forecasting, and we had to have a tool where the users can go ahead and submit this in the standardized template. So we had to build in a cash flow forecasting tool in SAP, which covers from first 30 days in a days format and the next running up to a weekly format for 52 weeks. Users can go ahead, key in the data, and once it submits, it is integrated with your cash flow analyzer at the back end to create the memo records and go to the cash flow analyzer, and immediately the group company users can run their cash flow analyzer to see the forecast. It is also key that it is integrated with your FX risk management process. Any foreign currency forecast gets submitted, it creates a raw exposure and feeds into your cash flow hedging process using, again, standard SAP's hedge management functionality. Hope that answers. That was a customized tool that we had to build and a portal to help the users to key in the forecast, and they can upload that using an Excel template.
I can tell you it took months to come up with a format. I mean, we started with everything you could possibly imagine and had to pare it down to the lowest common denominator, especially when you're talking about 900 different companies that are going to have to include their information in the forecast. So it took us a long time to really get it to a solution that I think as a user, I will be a user of this, I'm comfortable with it. So.
Okay, so still integrated with cash flow analyzer,
yes,
so that you can use the same data source for the FX. in the hedge management cockpit later, so that's good. That's still, you're there. Congrats. So the next question, let's see. We have 2 votes for the question. Could you explain a bit in detail how did you use SAP TRM for interest rate risk management?
Sure. So for SAP's TRM, we used, for interest rate risk management, we had, Hitachi has bonds, which feeds to the exposures. We had intercompany loans, which feeds to the exposures. We are using the old hedge management solution, and we married the bonds forecast and the loan forecast with the interest rate swap instruments. Hitachi uses interest rate swap, cross-currency interest rate swap, non-deliverable swap. So we integrated all of them. We also automated the cash flow hedge accounting, fair value hedge accounting, depending upon the direction the forecast was. So those accounting and the hedge management process, again, is using standard SAP.
Great. So that's it. I think this is what we had time for. Maybe one more. How long time do you expect the upgrade to take?
On this project? I will tell you, it started in June of 2019, and I would say we're probably halfway through the original scope that we had defined for this project. So we have a ways to go yet, but we're moving.
For the upgrade, we identified it this year because we want to go with APM solution with in-house cache for POBO, and we thought it's better to upgrade from the 1909 version to the latest version to make most use of the standard functionalities of APM. So that was the reason for the upgrade. And right now we are in the process. We have started the process. It'll take around, probably we expect to go live around January with the upgrades.
And I will say, if you think about the timing of this, we kicked off this project in October of 2019. Well, what happened in February of 2020? So you're talking about a group that's based in Singapore and a group that's based in Japan. So after February of 2019, everything we had to do on this project was remote. Everything was through Zoom. And this is not a project that you want to do through Zoom. You need that face-to-face. You need that collaborative time. And it was a real challenge for us to get our footing on this project. But I think we did. Eventually, we did. But it was tough.
Well done. Well done. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thank you.